geopolitical checkmate has officially been executed. While the Western world was distracted by holiday shopping and political infighting, a silent signal was sent from the Kremlin in Beijing at precisely 3 a.m. Eastern Time. It is no longer a rumor or a distant threat. The BRICS alliance, representing over 40% of the global population, has officially activated the unit, a decentralized gold-backed currency system designed specifically to render the US dollar obsolete. This is the moment the petrodollar died. We are witnessing the birth of a new multipolar world order, where physical assets, gold, silver, and oil, are the only things that matter, and the debt-based digital entries of the Federal Reserve are being treated like the garbage they are. But the activation of the currency is only the first phase. We have obtained leaked data regarding the Kazan Protocol, a secret agreement signed by the original BRICS members that outlines a coordinated liquidation of US Treasury bonds over the next 72 hours. This is an economic carpet bombing. They aren't just selling our debt. They are using it to crash the purchasing power of every single American citizen. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the internal liquidity charts that prove the dollar is already losing its value in the shadow markets, and why your local ATM might be the next thing to hit a system error. They knew this day was coming. The architects of the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department have been preparing for this controlled demolition for decades. But instead of protecting you, they have used the last 4 years to strip mine the American middle class. They encouraged you to stay in the digital grid, to trust in insured bank accounts, and to ignore the rising price of physical gold and silver. While you were being gaslit by mainstream media headlines claiming inflation was cooling, the elites were quietly moving their capital into the very hard assets that the BRICS alliance is now using to back their new system. They have ensured their survival, while you have been designated as the collateral. $37 trillion. That is the weight of the anchor currently pulling the American empire into the depths. The interest payments on this debt are now exceeding $1 trillion annually, more than our entire military budget. We are in a terminal debt spiral where the Fed must print more money just to pay the interest on the money they already printed. The BRICS nations realize that the dollar is a Ponzi scheme at its final stage. By backing the unit with a basket of physical resources, they are imposing a mathematical reality that a bankrupt empire can never meet. The physics of debt have finally caught up with the fantasy of the dollar. For the past 10 years, China has been the world's largest consumer and hoarder of gold. But they haven't just been buying what's on the market. They have been draining the COMEX and London vaults through dark pool transactions. Our intelligence suggests that China's true gold reserves are 10 times larger than what they officially report. They didn't show their hand because they were waiting for the dollar to reach its weakest point. Now, with the launch of the gold-backed unit, they have effectively flipped the table. They have the metal, we have the debt. And in a world of resource scarcity, the one with the metal makes the rules. The foundation of the US empire was the agreement that oil would only be sold in dollars. That agreement ended last night. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have officially begun settling energy trades in the unit and the Chinese yuan. Without the global requirement for nations to hold dollars to buy oil, trillions of unwanted greenbacks are now flooding back to the United States. This is the great reflow, and it is the catalyst for hyperinflation. When those trillions of dollars hit our domestic economy, the price of everything, from bread to gasoline, will explode. You're holding a currency that the rest of the world is desperately trying to dump. You will feel the launch of the BRICS currency first at your local supermarket. Hyperinflation doesn't start in the boardrooms of Wall Street. It starts on the shelves of your local grocery store. A gallon of milk that costs $4 today could cost $40 by next month. This is the great devaluation that Russia and China have engineered. They are punishing the West for its weaponization of the financial system by making our currency worthless at home. This isn't a theory anymore. It is the reality reflected in the rising commodity prices across the globe. The elites will not let the dollar die without implementing their final solution, the central bank digital currency, or CBDC. They will use the BRICS crisis as an excuse to shut down the traditional banking grid. Expect to see emergency maintenance and cyber attack narratives used to block your access to your funds. During this blackout, they will force the population into the new FedNow digital system. This is a digital prison where every penny you spend can be tracked, taxed, or turned off. They are using the collapse of the dollar to manufacture your consent for a total social credit system. In 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard and turned the dollar into a pure debt instrument. For 55 years, we lived on borrowed time. Now, in 2026, the BRICS alliance is returning the world to honest money. We are witnessing a 180-degree reversal of the last half-century of financial history. Power is shifting from the consumers of the West to the producers of the East. This is the most significant transfer of global dominance since the fall of the British Empire after World War II. The script has flipped, and the U.S. is no longer the lead actor. U.S. regional banks are currently facing a liquidity vacuum that is being hidden from the public eye. As BRICS nations liquidate treasuries, the collateral on bank balance sheets is evaporating. This is why we are seeing a sudden surge in technical difficulties. At major institutions like Wells Fargo and Chase, the banks simply do not have the physical cash to meet the demands of a panicking public. If even 5% of depositors tried to exit into physical assets today, the entire US banking system would be declared insolvent within an hour. The freeze is coming. Follow the actions of the whales, not the words of the politicians. Central banks worldwide purchased a record amount of gold last year, more than at any time since the late 1960s. Why are the people who print money buying gold? Because they know their own product is failing. They are building their fortresses while they tell you to keep your money in the digital grid. The smart money has already exited. If you aren't holding physical gold or silver, you are the one holding the bag for a bankrupt institution. The COMEX vaults are effectively empty. For every 1 ounce of physical silver, there are over 500 paper claims. The BRICS gold-backed currency is the pin that will pop this paper bubble. When the Eastern nations demand physical delivery of their contracts, and the Western exchanges will be forced to default. This will send the real price of silver into the hundreds of dollars, while the paper price on your screen remains a museum exhibit. If you don't have it in your hand, you don't own it. The era of paper assets is over. The most tragic victims of the unit launch will be the millions of Americans who spent their lives working for a pension or Social Security check. These funds are almost entirely backed by the very US debt that the BRICS alliance is currently dumping. As the value of that debt crashes, the purchasing power of your retirement vanishes. You might still get your check, but that check won't buy a week's worth of food. The government will lie about the inflation numbers, but your empty refrigerator will tell you the truth. Your retirement has been stolen by the central banks. Military power is a reflection of economic power. Without the ability to print infinite dollars to fund our global military bases, the US empire will be forced to retreat. The BRICS alliance understands that to defeat the American military, they must first defeat the American dollar. By launching the unit, they have neutralized our greatest weapon without firing a single shot. We are seeing a global realignment where even NATO allies are beginning to look east for their financial security. The unipolar world is dead. We are moving from a world of digital finance to a world of physical reality. In a resource-scarce world, the nations with the food, the energy, and the metal are the new masters. Russia provides the energy, China provides the manufacturing, and the gold provides the trust. The West, which produces nothing but debt and digital services, is being quarantined. We are being cut off from the global supply chain by the very nations we tried to sanction. The resource reset is the ultimate revenge of the East. To save the dollar, the Federal Reserve will be forced to hike interest rates to levels that will destroy the American housing market and every small business in the country. We could see mortgage rates hit 25% as the Fed tries to attract buyers for our debt. This will trigger a wave of bankruptcies and foreclosures that will make 2008 look like a minor correction. The era of easy credit is dead, and the hard reality of high-interest debt is going to crush the American dream for an entire generation. Vladimir Putin has tied the price of Russian oil and gas to physical metal. By demanding payment in rubles or gold, he has forced the world to acknowledge the value of real commodities. The launch of the unit is the final piece of this fortress strategy. Russia is now the energy supplier of the New World Order, and they are refusing to accept the paper of the Old World Order. We tried to isolate them, but we only succeeded in isolating ourselves from the world's most important resources. Every hyperinflationary event in history follows a hockey stick curve. It happens slowly, then all at once. The launch of the BRICS currency is the all-at-once moment for the US dollar. Within the next 30 to 90 days, the purchasing power of your savings will be decimated. This is why you see out-of-stock signs at major retailers today. The smart money is clearing the shelves while the dollar still has some value. They are trading paper for cans of soup and silver coins. They know what's coming. The window to protect your wealth is not closing. It is being slammed shut. The Kazan Protocol gives the BRICS nations 72 hours to execute their coordinated dump. This is your final warning. Once the liquidity of the banking system hits zero and the national security freezes are implemented, your ability to move your capital will vanish. You will be trapped inside a failing system with no way out. Secure your physical position today. Move into gold, silver, and tangible assets while the exits are still open. Physics always wins, and the physics of $37 trillion in debt says the dollar must die. The launch of the gold-backed BRICS unit is the physical manifestation of the end of the American century. Secure your sovereignty. Move your wealth into assets that have no counterparty risk and cannot be deleted by a central bank. If you hold the debt of the West, you will share in its collapse. If you hold the assets of the East, you will survive the transition. The choice is yours. The Great Reset is here. Subscribe for the next emergency update.